Hey there, global citizens. Welcome back to the Global Talks, your podcast dedicated to uncovering the joys and challenges of global citizens. I am your host, Shazadi Campos, and today we have two special guests with us to talk about the allure of Portugal for families. First up is Chitra Stern, the head of the Martinhal family hotel concept in Portugal and the founder of the International School United Lisbon. She's an expert in creating family-friendly environments and has first-hand experience in moving to Portugal. Also joining us is Patricia Casaburi, Managing Director of Global Citizen Solutions. It's a consultancy firm specialized in investment migration and relocation services. And she's also the Managing Director of Goldcrest Real Estate, a buyer's agency located in Portugal. So today we will be exploring Portugal for families, whilst delving into the challenges and the benefits of moving, living, and raising a family in this beautiful country. So welcome, Chitra and Patricia. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, very well.
Also great. Fantastic. Portugal's a great country.
Good.
Weather is good today.
Yeah.
As it is most of the time.
Yes, very pleasant, mild, plenty of sunshine. So yeah, all the good things for family. And I thought before we start talking about, because we want to hear all about your experiences as a businesswoman here, but as well as your also the challenges in moving on your own or with a family, and that really good tip that you could share with our viewers. But before that, I think it would be good to share some stats. So there are lots of expats in Portugal, as you know. Some people like to call it expats or migrants, but they are foreigners. An interesting looked at the census of 2021, and the number of foreign residents in Portugal increased by 40% in 10 years. So that was between the 2011 and 2021 census, amounting to over 550,000 people. This is data from the Foreign Borders Office, which is called the acronym CEF in Portuguese. And the growth of the foreign population residing in Portugal, it just confirm the trend of this country as a welcoming place to international citizens that want to start a life or want to carry on with their life or invest and perhaps move here in the future. I'm going to ask your opinion about all of that, but I want to give more stats because they're very interesting here. So the Algarve and the Lisbon metropolitan area have the highest proportion of foreign citizens. Anyway, so in 2011, it was 11.6% in the Algarve and 7.2% in Lisbon. In 2021, 14.7% in the Algarve and 8.9% in Lisbon. And the Martinhal Hotel in the Algarve, so I want you to tell us more about it. But between the two censuses of 2011, 2021, the native population of Portugal decreased by 2.1%. So if it had not been for the country's foreign population, this decrease would have been even more severe. So what do you think? Do you think the statistics really highlight Portugal welcoming, oriented destination for families here?
Yes. So, I mean, my husband and I actually moved to Portugal in 2001. So we've been here 22 years. So we've really seen the evolution of, some of the stuff that you're talking about. And I would say that it's certainly a very family-friendly country, but it's friendly to people in general. I am originally from Singapore, of Indian heritage, and moved to London in 1989, met a Swiss gentleman at work and, got married to him. He's from Zurich, Roman. And we moved to Portugal in 2001 and started a business and a family. We've had 4 kids here since, and started, a couple of different businesses. And I would say that it's one of the most open, tolerant, liberal societies, I've ever seen. And people are generally welcoming of foreigners, people from different backgrounds and different beliefs. So this is definitely one of the reasons. I mean, there's a whole host of other reasons. I even did a TEDx talk on this, why Portugal is trending a few years ago. And it's really, there's several other factors, the weather, its location, geographical location, between the Americas and the Middle East, easy access, through Lisbon, Faro, and Porto airports. The airports have access to various countries, etc. I mean, there's a whole host of different programs that Portugal introduced as well, which put Portugal on the map, or helped put Portugal on the map for tourism even. The investment that went into promoting the golden visa in other countries, and the non-habitual residence program. This brought more visitors to Portugal. I think it really helped increase the awareness of Portugal, in addition to all the good work that Turismo de Portugal, the tourism authorities, have done. But the bottom line, I always end with the story of why people are moving to Portugal and whether Portugal is friendly to foreigners. Yes, it's not just the environment, it's not just the infrastructure, geographical location, but the people are really welcoming, and that makes a huge difference. Because I say we are not robots, but we're humans, so we need to be happy in the place where we invest.
Definitely. And then, Chitra, you said you moved here in 2001.
Yes.
So that was 10 years before the census of 2011. Yes. So you basically saw the shift.
Huge
happening,
shift.
Yeah?
Yes, and I would say, I haven't looked at the 2001 census, but after this meeting, I'm going to look at it to see, to look at what shifts have happened in that decade. So yes, I've seen a huge transformation in the number of other people, foreigners living in Portugal. I mean, obviously in the Algarve, which is where we first moved to, there were many British people already who knew of the Algarve and had moved to the Algarve. Then the Irish, with the Oceanico developments, they were a real estate developer. They really did a lot of PR for in Ireland for the real estate sales, and Ryanair made Portugal one of its hubs. So tremendous shifts happened in the last 20 years, certainly. But between 01 and 11, you might find that the shift was, maybe even bigger.
Definitely, yeah. After the visa came in 2012.
End of 2012, exactly. Yeah. And bearing in mind that the global financial crisis happened between 2008 and really, by the time Portugal was coming out of it, it was 2014, 15. So, 2011's figures might have, I don't know how it affected. It would be interesting to see 2001, 11 and 2021.
Yeah, but definitely. Okay, so then you mentioned London, and I believe Patricia also she has a similar trajectory, but came from the other side of the world, Brazil, and then London for a while, and then Portugal. So do you want to share with us a bit about your, how did you end up here?
Yeah, sure. Wow. Different moves, completely different outset, and how we went about that. I moved to London in 2001 as well, early 2001, to study, and had really good friends living there. Always had the European connection and thought, why not? I had already been to London a couple of times before, and I remember the first time I went to London, I said, one day I'm going to live here, and I was very young at the time, so it was yeah, it felt like a huge accomplishment, and it was definitely a really great experience. We were there for 20 years. In this 20 years, we saw something in London that I think it mirrors very much so what we are seeing in Portugal now. Because obviously the UK has this, it was always established place for tourism between London and maybe Liverpool, I guess, or Scotland. You know, people were very familiar of going to the UK to visit. But I think the kind of, and also traditionally, the UK always had migrants from the Commonwealth countries. But we saw around the end of the 90s, early 2000s, there was like a boom of, you know, foreigners from all over the world coming to London. And it's changed. Even like, obviously now London is one of the biggest kind of culinary cities in the world, but it wasn't like that. Even in, you know, the early 2000s, the same thing. And we've seen the good and the bad. The real estate market that completely, you know, boomed in London over the years. When I moved there, like hindsight is a, you know, wonderful thing. You could, you know, buy apartments in Hampstead for like, you know, 80,000. And so, and if you think about it, we're talking like 20 years. So a lot has happened in this time frame. So London has given me a lot of opportunities. You know, met my husband, had my child there, started a company, worked in different industries before. And then, so the decision to come to Portugal was very different when I moved to London. It was very well structured, very planned. You know, we started investing in Portugal beforehand. We already had some friends here. But even from like when we started investing here, which was maybe 2014, 15, to us moving here in 2019, the whole ecosystem has been changing so much, so rapidly. And like just to pick it up on, I don't have enough data on the census, so it's more of a feeling. But what we see here is like in the, you know, number of different restaurants and cuisines that you can, you know, access now. Or Lisbon is a naturally beautiful city, as the geography in the Algarve, or even Porto is stunning. And the sky here, the light in Lisbon is one of the most special in the world at least that I've been to. But it was, you know, despite that, it was a rundown city, whereas now you walk around everywhere in Portugal and it's thriving, you know. Obviously with that, it always comes the good and the bad. But overall, I think it's amazing. It's and it's like Chitra was saying, it's a very welcoming place. But we definitely see this, and the foreigners do mingle. The people that are coming here, they want to get involved. So it's not just a pure investment. Even the clients that we have that at the moment they're doing a financial investment, most of them, I would say in our case, maybe 95% of our clients, if they cannot move right now, the intention is to one day to be able to spend real time here. And obviously this is super beneficial, because you do manage to kind of fully integrate and also have a positive impact on the economy. Or, you know, it's people spending, which is different than when you have tourists. So
of course, yes.
For the economy, is the relation is different, and for the longevity, it's sustainability of all of it. So
that's a very good point, because recently we've done a couple of lives about international schools in Portugal. You want stats, so I'll give you one. So there are basically on our guide, international school guide, we have 51 schools in Portugal, international. But there are more schools. It was just that we had more. We were very. The criteria was that the diploma, the certificate would be. It's not only teaching in English or another language, but would have an international certificate. Anyway, so there are actually over 60 international schools all over the country and the islands. But when we did these lives, what we realized is that when we spoke to headmasters and parents as well, they all wanted to be part of the community. So they chose a school that helps them to integrate in the local community. They didn't want to be that sort of expat that just mingled with the group of Brits or the group of Americans or the French. They wanted to learn about the culture. They wanted to learn the language. They want to be part of the community. So, yeah, that's a very good point when you say that your clients also, when they come to Global Citizen Solutions, they want to be part of it and bring benefits also to the country.
Yeah, and I would say even in the international schools, I mean, we founded an international school that opened 3 years ago in September 2020, and 20% of our school is Portuguese, 80% international. So I think having gotten to know some of the international schools in the Algarve as well as in Lisbon, I would say this is the case in other international schools too. There's always a good mix of students, nationalities, cultures. We've got over 51 nationalities represented in our school community, which is amazing. And Portugal actually makes it quite easy, I think. It's a small country, small Lisbon is a small city. I always say it fits the Goldilocks principle, it's just right. It's not too big, it's not too small. It's just right. It's a modern European city and yet authentic in nature. So Patricia was saying earlier, it's beautiful city, authentic city. But it's true, just to touch upon that, what you said earlier, we'll come back to what you're saying, that it was very run down, and actually without the investments that came in through the foreign direct investment, I was actually on the foreign direct investment task force that the government set up, the Portuguese Prime Minister set up for 3 years between 2017 and 2020, and the objective was to bring even more foreign direct investment into the country, because we're very aware here in Portugal, I think, of the impact of investment. I mean, first of all, every Portuguese person knows what fundos comunitários are, the EU structural funds that went into boosting the economy in big ways through infrastructure funds and social development funds. But the FDI, that foreign direct investment that comes in through investment of real estate or in companies, is very much valued. And specifically in Lisbon, we saw the transformation of Baixo Chiado, Bairro Alto, Príncipe Real, Rocio, all these areas which were totally run down, and not just run down due to a lack of paint. I mean, there weren't people living in this area at all. The number of registered local residents was only, in the tens, if I'm not mistaken, because, buildings were totally run down and uninhabitable. So the investment that's come through is truly, I mean, it helped create part of the success of tourism for Lisbon today, I would say. So that's, very much valued. Apologies for going back to that. I just wanted to comment on that.
And it's true. And jobs creations and new businesses, because, when you have buildings sitting empty, it's very hard to have a retail, setting. So now you have, if you open, a bakery or a little boutique, you do have people to come and spend. So it's all very correlated. Obviously now undergoing, there's a lot of open discussions because, with the foreign investment coming in, the paradigm changes as well. We're managing to keep the authenticity of the city because they're also very proud and have a very good senses of, the heritage that they want to maintain. So the rehabilitations, the renovations are done really well, and all the facades are kept, and the public museums, and a lot of new museums as well coming up that have been completely restored to their former glories. There's more a bigger art scene. So it's all very positive. And most importantly, I think it's been done in the course. Because it really started in maybe 98 with the funds from European, with the expo coming here and sewing.
Yes, so 1986, Portugal joined the EU. And of course, the infrastructure funds took a bit longer to come in. But 1998, in 89, they decided that to propose Lisbon as a destination for the World Expo, and to completely regenerate this particular area of Lisbon, which was really, really in a bad state for the Expo 98. And indeed, the European Union funds came in to help build the Vasco da Gama Bridge, 17-kilometer bridge across the River Tejo, as well as regenerate the whole of Parque das Nações, Park of Nations, or Expo, as the Portuguese call it, on the eastern side of Lisbon. And it's truly a global example of what can be done with an expo site, a World Expo site. It's truly a successful urban regeneration project. So yes, I mean,
and that's where you have the school as well.
That's the area we have the international school, and our latest Martinhal. Actually, we have 4 Martinhal hotels and resorts in Portugal, and one of them is in the Parque das Nações area. And just opened it, and the school, yes, it opened in September 2020. The United Lisbon International School.
It's a beautiful area, and I think the regeneration that was done there was done very cleverly, because it's not. There's a stark contrast between the old areas of Lisbon and even the newish with, like the Azul de Belém with all the trees and
that's
all the green.
Yeah.
But then you have Parque das Nações, which is
a new Lisbon.
A new Lisbon, a bit like, I don't know, there's some areas, it reminds me about Miami, a bit of a Paddington area in London.
Actually, yes.
Regeneration there as well.
King's Cross in London.
But it kind of blends itself really well with the rest of the town.
It does. Actually, I mean, I often compare it to sort of the Canary Wharf of Lisbon, but it's right in the heart of town. You could say Paddington for sure, King's Cross area, huge regeneration project, successful. It's on a smaller scale here. Battery City Park, in New York. But again, I mean, Lisbon has a particular combination of factors that make it so interesting, because, the airport is very close by to the city, or in the city, I should say, actually. We're at the river all around Lisbon, because if you look at the rectangular shape of Lisbon, you've got the River Tejo, the Tagus River, going all the way around it, and it's beautiful. And the riverside location of Parque das Nações is an amazing new part of Lisbon. I mean, I love it because it's the perfect 15-minute city. I've been, I get to walk everywhere. There's a fantastic private hospital. There's a chain of 3 chains of private hospitals, successful private hospitals in Portugal. One of them is CUF, C-U-F, and there's a great CUF hospital in Parque das Nações, in Park of Nations, and other locations in Lisbon. There is the Hospitais Particular do Algarve, HPA, which is the Algarve. It started in the Algarve with a Madeirense doctor entrepreneur, and they're primarily with their clinics and hospitals in the Algarve, but they've opened one in Madeira as well. And there's Joaquim Chaves Saúde as well. But there's a CUF in Parque das Nações. It's literally 5 to 10 minute walk from where I live, which is in the Martinhal. Parque das Nações, Martinhal Orient, as it's called, Martinhal Lisbon Orient. Fantastic shopping center, but also lots of small shops and restaurants, and there's a casino there. There's Altice Arena is there, which is the main concert venue in Lisbon, or the largest. It's also where Web Summit happens, Feira Internacional de Lisboa. It's the equivalent of the Javits conference center here. Or the O2 in London. So very well thought through and executed. I mean, I should say, it wasn't just an idea on a piece of paper. So, kudos to the Portuguese government and successive Portuguese governments for seeing that through.
Definitely. That's why you chose that place.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm originally Singaporean, and a Londoner. I'm a Brit.
A little bit. It has a little bit of Singapore there.
Singapore and a Londoner, as well. 12 years in London and a Brit. And I'm Swiss through marriage as well now. So this sort of the organization of what has happened there is really very interesting. There's pure pedestrianized areas, then semi-pedestrianized, and then different roads to handle the different levels of traffic. And it's got a fantastic the Gare d'Orient, so public transport is excellent because it's a bus station as well as underground station and train station. It's close to all the circular roads and the highways to connect north to south as well as around Lisbon. So no, I love it. I love organization, and I love when good urban planning comes through. Quite honestly, it's really great.
Yeah. But it's also quite refreshing that they haven't stopped as per Patrick says, because it's been extended. So they just revitalize the river along Marvila in the area there. There's a new project. Yeah. So it's getting a little bit more in-house and a little bit inward as well. So there's a lot of old warehouses at Beat, and so this whole city is very exciting to be here. Like we are both not from here, but you just feel it's quite tangible, I guess, the change and the investments.
I think you also mentioned, I'm sorry, I just need to steer now a bit the conversation because this is really exciting and you have a lot to say. So you mentioned healthcare, which is something very important. I don't want to miss on that. Because it's good for families. And it tends to be one of their main concerns, especially when they come from the US. So, Patricia, do you want to talk about the healthcare system in Portugal? Because it's a private one, but there's also a public service. So do you want to give a basic explanation before? Sorry, I just realized this podcast we film, but we also have the recorded version that goes on Spotify. So some of our listeners that are not seeing us might be wondering, what was the sound of water, flowing through? That was me giving some water to Chitra, I guess.
Sorry.
Just to explain why out of the blue there was a kind of a bit of a meditation background going on. But yeah, so healthcare, Patricia.
Okay, I would say the system here, like most people, when they're looking to relocate, depending on what stage in life they are, they'll have slightly different concerns. Families will likely look at school first and then decide where they're going to live and or where to live if you have all the time in the world. But like a common thread, no matter like if you are like a digital nomad or retiree or planning to have babies or whatever, it's looking at the healthcare. It doesn't matter which nationality you are. Obviously, Americans are always in for a very pleasant surprise because the kind of premiums that you pay in private insurance here have absolutely no comparison. So I would say Portugal, much like the UK, have a very sturdy national health system, equally overly subscribed, I guess, or there's a lot of pressure, right, for public services. So anyone that comes to Portugal in a resident visa of some sort will have full access to the national health system, as they would, to schooling as well and other. So they can have the same rights as a Portuguese person apart from voting, essentially. So I think this is really important because a very broad and welcoming country, which just goes on to reinforce everything that we have been saying. So what I would say is some of the visas pending, like I have a little bit of the immigration mind always to everything I'm talking about. So when you're looking for immigration setting, depending on the visa, you do require to have health insurance. But once you're full-time resident here, then you can switch and you wouldn't need one. What I would say is, historically as well, much like the UK, you get the same quality of doctors in the kind of national services you do in private practices. A lot of them do both. So they would work for like a state hospital as they would and for a private one. The main difference, I would say, and the advantage of having private health insurance is to do when you need a consultant, or if you want to see a specialist fairly quickly and that kind of, just do a test. Because otherwise, obviously, if it's an emergency, that's what most people say. Like if you have a small child and, they fall, you most likely, if you take them to the ER, because they never get sick during the day, right? It's always in the middle of the night, at the weekend or something like that. You will be seen and you will get good service. But if you just, want to do a regular pediatrician check or something, then it's a lot harder to get like the family doctor to kind of point it towards a consultant's appointment.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's really good. There's a range of, healthcare plans that you can have like co-participation, I think they call it, that you have kind of heavily subsidized by the private insurance. Sometimes you have fully covered for the insurance. And there's providers that are truly international providers that a lot of the families will be already familiar with, like, I don't know, Cigna and some of the big ones. That especially if you're not living here full time, then you might want to have like a global healthcare. And this tend to come with a higher price tag. But if you're looking for like local solutions, some of the hospital groups that Chitra was mentioning, they have their own insurances.
They have their own insurances, okay.
Most of the banks will have solutions as well that they offer. And you'll be looking, obviously it's a little bit age-driven, the kind of the premiums you'll be paying. But for like a family with small children, you probably be looking, let's say, a family of 4, something like less than €200 a month for,
I was going to ask you an idea on prices.
Kind of
That's
a
good.
health insurance. Mm-hmm. There's a number of good services now for... We've just met recently this firm that was referred by one of our clients, actually, and they have a very sharp service with everyone that works there. They're health practitioners, international health practitioners, either American or Brit or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they will do all these screening calls, and then they will arrange an appointment with a doctor that speaks English and will be already fully aware with your case. So it's a very well developed and affordable healthcare. And obviously you could rely, like I said, especially for emergencies, on the national health system, but even for vaccinations and things, it's a very well-oiled machine. So we've got friends that had babies here and they had it, didn't have it private and had a good experience. Yeah, but I would say, it's so affordable that it's probably just, it's definitely worth it. But there's a lot of solutions.
And I think you guys are putting together healthcare guides.
Yes, it's coming out in July.
It's available freely with basically all this information that you just said, but also telephone numbers and websites.
Yes, certainly should be in there. It's coming out in July, I think, and. But yeah, the idea is just to provide the information so people can make, they feel equipped to make decisions, I guess. Yeah.
I would totally agree with everything you've said, Patricia. So I was one of those cases. I mean, I had 3 of my kids privately, but one of them in public hospital in Barlavento in Portimao, actually in the Algarve.
There's a story in there.
There's a story there, absolutely. And everything went absolutely fine. And that was in the first decade
that was the first one,
yeah, exactly, when I was having kids. And private healthcare, I have the case study of even bringing my parents here and getting them private healthcare here. And you actually, compared to so many other places, it's so much more affordable because it's managed healthcare in Portugal. That's one of the things, for the Americans to understand, is because it's managed healthcare, the insurance premiums and the consultations, or even just going into the hospital for, anything is much more affordable than back home in the US. And that's a, very important thing for the Americans to understand. And even with cases where, for whatever reason, if you haven't had, if you've got pre-existing conditions and you haven't had insurance before, you can actually still get a quote and get cover, which is amazing here.
Yeah.
And I would give the advice, definitely. I mean, I look forward to seeing your healthcare guide. Contact, a couple of brokers as well to get different quotes, and then go with the one that suits you. Choose something that covers the hospitals close to where you're living, where you've decided to live.
That's a good tip, yeah.
And sorry, there's also lots of clinics. There's lots of clinics as well, private clinics,
yeah.
where it's the first level of care here in Portugal. You have, you have the family doctor in the public system, of course, Medicina, Doutor de Familia, or now
Médico de Família.
Médico de Familia, desculpa, Médico de Familia. I was doing Medicina, it's family medicine was my mind. So you have the Médico de Familia in the public system, but you also, you'll have your sort of private clinician, either internist or, family doctor. So there's a whole range of clinics as well. It's not just the private hospitals.
Hey, and a lot of the times now, since COVID, you can talk to your private physician online, which is amazing.
I've been using a lot of online medicine, actually.
And it works really well. You do a quick Zoom, and so for minor things. So this is something that is become fully developed.
Very good for that urinary tract infection. You just get it all sorted on the phone and get the antibiotics bill, and so we talked about healthcare, and we've touched schools as well. But it would be good to know, because we were talking about the benefits of, and how this country is very family oriented and so on, and all the benefits that the society brings to the foreigner here. We even talk about the urban landscape. Let's touch on the challenges. What are the challenges that families could encounter here when they decide to move to Portugal?
So I'd just like to say, what people might think are typical challenges aren't challenges here. English is widely spoken. For the Americans, what I found that people here actually make an effort, even if they don't speak English well, they make a huge effort to make foreigners feel welcome. And, the other typical challenges of getting around, you've got great guides, especially, I came here 22 years ago, but since then you've got a lot of interesting information online that helps you do your due diligence, so the challenges are reduced. So I would say a challenge that still exists is some of the other things that you might think are quite easy, you have to dedicate a bit more time to.
Okay. Is that the bureaucracy?
Bureaucracy. So, if you want to open a bank account, you need to have some things ready. I'm sure you have some guides on that. But, here in Portugal, you don't exist unless you get your tax number sorted out first. So get your tax number sorted out with the help of your lawyer or, relocation agent, real estate agent, whoever it is. Everyone's awfully helpful. So it's an English expression. I then realized later, awfully helpful sounds a bit very helpful. So, and then, just make sure that you have everything ready to open get your bank account opened. Obviously, you need a bank account if you're going to, buy a property. So usually all that stuff gets sorted out if you're buying a property. But if you're moving here, you might need to make sure, without a property, you might need to sort of get some special attention for those things to get those sorted out. Other challenges, Patricia, I'll let you talk, and then I'll think about some of the other challenges.
I think it's pretty much in line to what you were saying. Is little things once you settled, like switching your driver's license, that causes a lot of anxiety. But Portugal has one of our partners, he says the bureaucracy mall. Loja da Cidadela.
Yeah.
Then you go there.
Great. Yeah.
You go there and you get a little number, and you could probably get it sorted in one day. But yeah, these are the sort of things that I would guess
take a bit longer, don't you find? I mean,
yeah,
I think
sometimes you can't resolve it in the first trip unless you have a little bit of help.
So I think that's the only thing to say. But you will get it sorted eventually, because people will help you through. I mean, buying a property as well. The paperwork. I think one of the things is the culture. This is what I found. People, because they're used to it, but they're not giving you a checklist of things to say, these are the things you need to bring. Sometimes it's, there's one more thing, and it's sort of drip feeding the information and be prepared for it. I'm not, I originally came for 5 years. I'm still here. So, I love the country too much, and we're still investing here, and I love the people too much. So, but as a foreigner coming here for the first time, this is something you just have to be prepared for. Okay. There are specific things in other countries that make, our challenges. As long as you're aware of these things and you get the appropriate help, you'll get it sorted.
That's it. So do your full research, talk to specialists,
work with agents.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we really like paper here. They like paper stamps.
And there's mysteries to be solved. I don't know what the banks do. With all the paper, and even like little blank sheets have to be in the printout. They're very precise about everything. But once you get into the swing of it, and you kind of learn to navigate.
That's it.
And I think a lot of people come here, especially from the US or the UK, and they have their busy lives, and they say they're moving here because they want to change the pace. But then equally, then, you come across a different pace. Because, here, it's not uncommon for you to wait for 3 days to get a response to an email. And I know trust me, like, it's one of the things that I put on our, like, service level with my team. I find it, like, no way people cannot wait and things like that. But the easier you accept certain things, that you are in a different speed, it all becomes a little bit. It's not that it's not different. It's more. It kind of. You manage to balance your level of anxiety, because I guess I don't know, in the UK or in the US, to change your driver's license, you submit things online, and it suddenly just materializes, and it's not always works the same way here. And then once you accept all of that, I think it makes it a little bit easier.
I think it reminds me of a sign that I saw in a very quainty bar in Thailand, and they said, if your expectations are too high, just lower your expectations. But it was great, because they only saw 2 cocktails there, and they had like 2 chairs, and
I'm not sure that I buy into that, because that goes against a little bit of everything that I believe, right?
And that's also what I wanted to say. I mean, I think here, let me just say that what I've seen in the 20 years I've been here, and that's why, it's interesting to have this 22-year view as well. Things have advanced so much, okay? Portugal has really engaged in, digitalizing a lot of things, and, they call it simplex. It's a different word. I know it has different, but here, it was the word that they used to simplify procedures. So I'll say it again. The Portuguese government engaged in, over many years, simplifying bureaucratic procedures and digitizing procedures. So that, it's an ongoing thing, and things, I always have to compare sort of 5-year samples, and things are getting better. And what you will find is, again, this culture of the email responses. What I find is people want to reply when they have all the answers. In England or in the UK or America, in the US, people get back immediately, say, I'll look into it, right? Within seconds. But some of the answers might still take some time.
That's such a good point. That's true.
It is. Yeah. So you don't get that immediate response. People find it ridiculous here to say, why should I just come back and say, thank you, or
exactly.
they want to have all the answers. And so this difference in cultural expectations, I would say.
That's very good.
And I would say, I mean, in any country, you might find people who are not working well, but here, people are very hardworking in general. They really want to, do the best to enable you to have a good time. And personalizing the issue helps people, So that's why I always say, don't just write emails or write WhatsApps, because we're in a generation now, everything is just online.
Yeah.
Try to meet people in order to get your things done. Yeah. Because the culture here is very much about face-to-face, And I think this might be a shock for the very younger generation that likes to send just emails and WhatsApps to resolve things.
Yeah.
But actually, I think because the culture here has a lot to do with, family comes first. Actually,
yes,
I would say above many other things. People are very connected to their, aunts and uncles and primos and prima, cousins and grandparents. So that social engagement is still very important, I think, for people.
Definitely.
So that's another tip. That's another tip for anyone who's, thinking of moving here. Try to meet the people you're doing business with, or that you're trying to, sort things out. It helps.
Chitra, so tell me everything that you said, in terms of service and so on, it stems from your background in the hotel industry. And I went to to Martinhal and Sagres. I actually spent Christmas there. And I think 2 years ago, it was in the middle of a pandemic, and but we were not on lockdown, by the way.
It wasn't on lockdown at the time.
But I did have a great time, and I had never been to a family fully catered environment that I felt comfortable together with my child, that someone thought of my needs as well. It wasn't only about the kids. The kid was very happy. Everything was nice and sleek. But I also had like a really good restaurant around the corner, cocktail bars. And so how do you think this Portugal brought your family hotel concept to life? Was there something in the culture that was good?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we started having kids in Portugal because we felt it was much nicer to have, start having our family here. Things are easier here. Children, you can take your children most places. But what was difficult was to go on holiday with your children. I'm not saying particularly just in Portugal, but, we realized that, having had kids later, that you couldn't go to your favorite, hotels anymore. With your children. I'm actually not a hotelier by full background. I'm an electronic engineer, chartered accountant, MBA prior to coming to Portugal.
Wow,
but,
okay.
Sort of, and strategic thinking, for a business, we saw a gap once we started having children. So a gap in the market to actually do a hotel brand that looks after children, but moving away from the club concept with mass experiences that gives parents sophisticated time, and food and, enjoyment as well. So focusing on the different members of the family. Now, the Portugal specific thing, of course, finding people who work in the hotel industry. When we started, I mean, now there's a lot of challenges because Portugal has an aging, declining population. And over the last 22 years, Portugal definitely moved up in tertiary education levels, so the economic conundrum that you face when you have a more educated society, what happens, for sort of, labor needs. But at that time, there were, when we opened the hotel, it was 2010, actually, so just 1 year before your census.
So mine is from SEF.
Yes, from SEF census, from the census you referred to. We had well-educated, because Portuguese government had actually focused on people going into hotel schools. They started more hotel schools in Portugal because they wanted to be ready for the growth of hotels. They'd been investing in hotels, attracting investors, start new hotels, opening hotels, 5-star hotels. They wanted to move their industry just from the old world of Bensoish and Albergrillas into high-end, high-quality hotels. And I mean, it was amazing because I got to know about the BENT, the National Strategic Plan for Tourism strategy. So, Plano Estratégica Nacional de Turismo, BENT.
Okay.
And as part of that, they really focused on investing in hotel schools and preparing kids to join hotels. So we started working with the hotel schools, and we found good people to work in the industry who were family oriented as well. Now, the only difference was we, as the Martinhal brand, had to really focus on getting some of the formality out and helping staff think about being more empathetic, putting themselves in the shoes of families. And, you know, I have a motto, which is helping the mother have her cappuccino with the foam still on it.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
And that's the motto. And then a million things around that, you know, have to happen to enable her to have that cappuccino with the foam still on it. It has to do with the kids' corners. It has to do with the empathy of the staff, looking at you, realizing that, you know, the child is not having a good time and coming to say, well, is everything all right? Can I help you? And, you know, et cetera, et cetera. We have baby concierge service to make the travel more smooth for the mother, father too. But, you know, I focus on the mother because mothers are more anxious in general, I think. Including the menu, you know, not just having the typical burgers, pizzas, and spaghetti bolognese, but to also have freshly pureed food for different age groups. So a lot of what we put into the brand was actually empathy, I would say. And, in Portugal, you know, it's been fantastic actually opening hotels. We opened 5 hotels, actually. One of them we actually sold last year. It was an offer we couldn't refuse. And, you know, we now have 4. But I would say we have found some amazing people in Portugal, well-trained to be with us in the brand. Right now, our team is I've always believed in diversity. So we always had that push to have, Germans, French, you know, diversity is a strength, you know, it strengthens the team in order to, you know, provide excellent 5-star quality service to different nationalities. So, you know, Brazilians and Indians. But now, right now, with the challenges we have, aging, declining population, more educated in engineering and, you know, other fields, that means we as a society need more immigration across different,
age brackets
and technical skills and so on. And right now, I would say, as the President de Câmara, Mayor Carlos Moedas, said at our opening, at our inauguration ceremony, they're all Lisboetas. You know, whatever nationalities they are, this is a question for CEF and, you know, border, the borders to sort out. But they're all Lisbonites who are working in the industry, in the hotel industry. So long answer, but, you know, all these things, I think, really have helped us make Portugal a good destination for Martinhal. But one more thing, which we have not mentioned at all throughout this whole talk, the safety and security in Portugal.
Oh, definitely.
Which I think is a super interesting and important point for raising families, or to have a family-friendly hotel, or even 4, you know. Portugal is one of the safest places I know in the world. And it also has to do with the sort of neighborhood watch approach. You know, people are concerned if they see someone in trouble, they're there to help people, and, you know, they don't just ignore
the local CCTV. Literally, if you just come home and park the car, all the old ladies will open the window.
Yeah, who's coming home, right?
Who's coming home? Yeah.
So I think this is one of the safest societies, and long may it last. And I think this is one of the important draws for the foreigners who are moving to Portugal from Brazil, from America, you know, many other places in the world.
Definitely, security is a high point here.
And, you know, kids can walk home or, you know, take public transport home. They have freedom here. And I think this makes it an amazing place for families to come and settle down.
Yeah. Is that also something that you see from your clients when they come to Global Citizen Solutions? They want the security that Portugal can offer.
The industry that we are in, it's fairly impressive. It's an immediate, like the needle moves so quickly. We kind of not thrive, but it's something that people actively seek alternatives in terms of residency or nationality as a backup plan when things are not going so well domestically. So if there's a mass shooting in a school in the US, it's kind of overnight we see it again, because, if people have been thinking about it and something like this happens, just makes you question everything again. So yes, so it's the same thing. Yeah. People will definitely safety, security, stable politics, and everything else plays a huge, part on the decision making of families or for
definitely.
Yeah.
I think also to come on holiday. I mean, I know we have the little sort of tram 28, beware of the pickpockets. Obviously, we all have to be careful not to get pickpocketed in crowded places. But I think it's wonderful to come on holiday here. I mean, yesterday I was even in the Algarve on business, for one night with my husband, and I lived in the Algarve for 15 years, and now nearly 8 years in Lisbon, but in the Lisbon area, and it's wonderful. I mean, you can't beat it for a holiday, and you can't beat it to actually as a place to live. It's the combination of things you have, and it's wonderful.
So healthcare, schools, English, well spoken everywhere. Even at public services, you call, and then you have the option to speak with someone in English, which I find amazing. We talk about business. It's a business environment. It's right for startups, for companies. So we're talking about families, but some of these parents might want to start a business here. We talk about the tech environment as well, which is thriving. We talk about urban revitalization of some areas here. I think we covered everything that I had on my script, and Chitra bought the security, which is great. Now,
one more thing to say about the security. Sorry, just if you could.
Go on.
Portugal, part of why Portugal is such a safe place is actually it's quite high on the Global Peace Index.
Yeah.
And that has to do with the society, how they view, things. And even when it comes to sort of demonstrations, which have to happen in democracy, especially when things are not going well, they're peaceful demonstrations.
They're peaceful, that's true.
So I think, there's two aspects, the safety and security, but there's this point about the being high on the Global Peace Index, which says a lot about Portuguese society. Yeah. So I think it's an important thing to bring up.
I'll bring up something very anecdotal that I saw yesterday on a Facebook group. It's of foreign moms in Lisbon. And then it was a post from an American mother, very worried about secondhand smoke in Portugal. Secondhand smoke in Portugal.
I don't even know.
So when you're smoking, go on. When someone's smoking and you're inhaling it, that's secondhand smoke. You're not smoking.
And the amount of American parents that went underneath her post to say, I'm much more worried about secondhand bullets. And they were all like, security is amazing. And obviously there was a bit of it's Europe, right? So they smoke a lot in France, they smoke a lot in Italy, in Spain, in Portugal. But there are laws being implemented so that people are not smoking in esplanadas, which is like the outdoor verandas here with covered tops. But yeah, there will be a bit more smoke here, but you can always walk away. But I think it would be good for our viewers to have like a checklist of topics that you think someone that is now researching, thinking, I'm moving to Portugal, or I will invest in Portugal because I might move there at some point in my life, or I just want to go more often to that country. which are the topics that they need to start researching now?
So, I mean, from my perspective, it depends on what age you are, whether you're coming here as a family or just as a couple or individually, whether you're a digital nomad or whether you're starting a business.
Yeah.
So the checklist differs. But I would say certainly, for generally, if you're going to buy a property, visit first to see whether, check out the different areas, because I think it's important that you're happy in the place you choose to buy a property and the place you're going to be living. And as a family, I think the school is a pretty international school.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great public schools, of course, but if your children have already been raised in an English-speaking environment, to plug into the Portuguese system just like that, if it's possible up to a certain age, but for the older children, you'll need to take them to an international school. So check out the international schools. Meet the teachers, check out the group behind the school as well. Try to really, I would say, you're going to find a good lawyer to make the transaction, obviously, but do try to, if you don't have that help already from the real estate agent or, your lawyer, a relocation agent, because make things easier for yourself to move your things, because some of the hassles of moving can be saved.
Yes.
If, we try to help all our buyers as Martinhal. We have a great team and we have concierge services. But, I would say it should be hassle-free because it's possible to be hassle-free. And look into, how are you going to get around? Transport or car? Do you need to own a car? Because, from moving from America, you might think that you'd need a car for everything. It's not the case in certain parts. I mean, certainly in Lisbon, public transport is fantastic. You've got, there's definitely room for improvement, more lines, in the metro, but they're working on it. Uber is extremely easy and cheap to use here compared to London, for example. Getting from, Parque das Nações to even the Miradouro of Nossa Senhora of the Monte, Nossa Senhora do Monte, 6-7 euros if there's no traffic, This is so. I think these are the things that you might that are very different here compared to the US. Good food is widely available, and you have, of course, you have more expensive restaurants, but you also have very accessible restaurants here with high quality food, which is quite different to the US. I think access to food. These are my sort of checklists.
So it was the location, the school, transport, but that's kind of also linked to location. How about you, Patricia? Visa is very important. Like number one.
Yeah, the preparation, but there's always a visa or a way if people willing to move to Portugal or even other places in Europe. Another big consideration is taxes. Obviously, if Americans, for instance, they are will always have to pay federal taxes. But there's things that you can do when planning your, state exit tax. There's things that you can do to facilitate that. But come over if you can.
Come over, exactly.
That's
I
the
think
first
the
thing
main
to
thing,
visit,
because I think a place is also a feeling.
I totally agree.
You can find the most beautiful house, but and it might be a perfectly, nice neighborhood for me, but it may not be for you because your point of reference is different. I don't know. So obviously, during COVID, we helped a lot of clients, and we did the best we could with technology and videos and doing walkabouts for clients. And we always brutally honest in situations, clients being here or not, we're always gonna say the good, the bad, and the ugly, because most of our clients will be in a relationship with them for 5, 6, 7 years. So for us, it's really important that they feel happy and confident their purchase. So even with a rental, because if you're commuting to a lease or whatever, But yes, if at some point they can come over, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, of course.
And just to clarify one thing about the Golden Visa, it's ended, yes, in its current format. But if someone wants to buy a property and move here, you can. Okay, it's not like some countries where you as a foreigner can't buy a property and move to the country, because that has to be clarified. In certain countries, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Whereas in Portugal, as a foreigner, you can buy a property and move in, and then you organize your resident permit.
Yeah, that's it.
Which is a possibility. The Golden Visa was just different. Yes, you didn't need to come and live here.
Yeah.
I think this is something, that it would be important to transmit.
To highlight, that's true. If the desire is to move to Portugal, there's a range of visas. And as you said, you mentioned digital nomad. There is also the D7 visa. It's all that Patricia can speak way better than me, but we have to do another podcast episode just for that. I want to also add language classes, because I think you can get a head start if you learn a bit of Portuguese before you move here, or even before your visit, even though everyone will switch and speak to English to you because they want to practice.
I think it's very nice to be able to speak a few words of Portuguese. I mean, what is interesting, having French helped me a lot, learning Portuguese, obviously. People are so encouraging. I mean, all I had to say initially was, "Bom dia, como está?" "Ah, senhora já fala muito bem português." And they're very, people are immediately, encouraging you. The only problem you have is because so many people speak English, good English, your Portuguese, I always feel my Portuguese is not as good as the English spoken by Portuguese. So I always say, okay, let's just speak in English. But, it's wonderful for people who are prepared. I think you can really, have the encouragement from Portuguese people to speak in Portuguese.
Great. I'd also say to join Facebook groups, and I've seen how it helps a lot when you're doing your search. You're still not sure about where to go, which school, which area, and then you connect to people that have already done that, and they're there, and then you can check all the information that you get from your agents.
Yeah, but I also, another thing that, and we've seen some clients that do that very successfully, is, I don't know, if you're like an accountant in the US, try to connect with the local body here, and then you might get to, network with people in the same position. And even if your intention is not to, you're just coming to retire or whatever, it's good, because you kind of opening. Because obviously for family it's a bit of a no-brainer, because the school is a community.
It's a huge parent community group in our school too, you get
it's
to meet
very
a lot
important,
of people.
And it makes life a lot easier to connect and meet new families. But if you're not coming for that, then you need to seek those types of connections.
And I think there are clubs here as well. I'm also on the board of the American Club of Lisbon, it's...
Patricia's also part of the American Club.
Yes. Yeah. So, I think being a member, you get to do lots of different kinds of networking events, and you are able to meet so many other people. And the membership has grown a lot, not just with Americans, but, people from other nationalities and Portuguese people too. So seek out the different clubs, each, there's the Dutch Chamber of Commerce, there's other chambers of commerce where you can really meet other people, go to their events, the Irish business communities as well. Business network. I would say, it's a multitude of opportunities to network and get to know other people.
Wow, amazing. Thank you. That was great. So I hope our viewer got a very good understanding of Portugal for families. And if they need to speak to anyone, any of our guests here, they're available, and you will see on the comments there, we'll put the contact details for your respective companies, and that's it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.